Welcome to Carbon Connection, the podcast bringing you the latest insights from the front lines of climate action. I'm Lauren Napuck with the Climate Action Reserve, and together we'll hear from industry leaders driving real progress against climate change and explore the ever-evolving world of carbon markets and climate policy. Thanks for joining, and let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another season of Carbon Connection. We are very excited to be kicking off the third season today with a special episode featuring our very own Craig Ebert, who is the president of Climate Action Reserve. In our episode today, I'm excited to be speaking with Craig to reflect on the extraordinary year that the Reserve has had and the evolving carbon market landscape that we are privileged to be a part of. Today, Craig will share his insights on the significant progress that the Reserve has made in 2024, in which we're going to highlight the impact of key initiatives and the strategic direction that will guide the Reserve in the coming years. So, Craig, let's dive in, and it's great to have you.
Thanks, Lauren. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for the invite. And it's always a delight to be able to reach out to people on the most pressing topic of our day, which is human-induced climate change. So looking forward to diving into it.
Absolutely and completely agree. Now, to kick things off, Craig, what have been the most significant accomplishments for the Climate Action Reserve this past year? And how do these achievements align with the Reserve's broader long-term goals?
Thanks for asking. I want to focus on two major efforts we've been involved in over the past year and longer in some cases. The first is our ongoing expansion into new geographies, both in Latin America and in Asia. Because of the way the Reserve does business, we're very meticulous about essentially going country by country or arguably region by region, unlike a lot of the other registries out there that often do umbrella or global type protocols moving forward. There's a variety of reasons for that, but we're excited that we've got China adipic acid protocol that is going to lead to tens of millions of tons of reductions annually. We've also been expanding in Latin America. Most recently are looking at livestock and landfill protocols in Argentina, as well as significantly in expanding our work in Mexico. We've got work, of course, in Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and Panama. That is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. We are determined to make an environmental difference when it comes to the climate crisis. And these actions, I think, are definitely helping in that regard. I think the other major effort has just been, given all of the uncertainty swirling around the international voluntary carbon market, particularly questions about the integrity of credits that are available, we've been working actively with many stakeholders out there to enhance the perceived credibility in the market, most notably with the ICVCM, the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. That's an initiative involving many organizations and stakeholders around the world. And it really is an attempt to coalesce around recognized standards for the highest quality credits. The ICVCM is recognizing those high quality credits with the use of their CCP label or core carbon principle label. And we've been privileged to have some of our credits recognized as CCP eligible in the first year. That includes our U.S. landfill credits and our U.S. ODS credits. That is just the start. We're fully expecting that many, if not all of our credits will eventually get that designation. And we continue to work with the ICVCM and others to define what high quality means and how to recognize that to ensure that we've got a vibrant voluntary carbon market that the entire world can have confidence in when they're investing in climate abatement.
Thank you so much, Craig. You've really highlighted these two critical pieces for the Reserve this year, which is our expansion into new geographies and getting more involved and approved by the ICBCM, which is really helping to support this evolution of the carbon market. And as you mentioned, build this higher confidence and higher integrity as well. So that leads me to my next question, which is, alongside the ICBCM, how has the landscape of the carbon market continued to evolve in 2024? And what trends do you foresee continuing on into the next year?
That's a great question. I think One of the challenges all of us involved in this market have been dealing with have been perceptions of greenwashing by companies through the use of carbon credits voluntarily. I feel very strongly that a lot of that focus has been misguided. And certainly the strategy that some of these skeptics have employed is doing nothing but delaying action on climate change. Arguably, what's happening right now is perfection is being the enemy of the good, or I should say, perceived perfection. One of the things we encounter regularly is that many of these, what I call chicken little critics, don't understand how the markets work, or fundamentally, they do not understand how our protocols work. And they're very frequently lob poorly substantiated or even unsubstantiated claims against the quality of the credits. Not surprisingly, that's having a chilling effect on the market. That is leading to a lack of action worldwide to address the climate crisis. Frankly, we're out of time. We are frying this planet, and companies need to get off the sideline, but they're not going to get off the sidelines until they know with full confidence that the honest steps they're taking to try to make a difference are not going to rebound into accusations of greenwashing. That's not to say that there aren't low quality credits out there. There are, and we have to squeeze them out of the market. But collectively, we need to be working on a continuous improvement process. And that's really what's been happening over the last year. A lot of capital is sitting on the sidelines. A number of companies have made statements that they're not going to be involved in the VCM until there's further clarity. That's not benefiting humanity at all. It's just simply leading to paralysis of action, if you will. And that's a serious problem. I think moving forward, I do see that situation changing, partly because of the efforts of the ICVCM to communicate to the market out there what high quality means. I think one of the ongoing challenges is going to be that these critics out there are likely not to back off on their often ill-founded accusations. It would be much more productive if there was a sense that we as all humans are in the same boat. And if anybody has concerns about quality of what's out there, get into the game. What do I mean by that? Climate Action Reserve is incredibly proud of our very transparent, all-inclusive approach to developing our protocols. What does that mean? Anybody who's interested in it can join the process. Each of our protocols over the years has had probably hundreds of stakeholders relying on hundreds of peer-reviewed research to support the end result. And that's great. And you don't have to be a supporter, you can be a skeptic. But, our tent is so big and everyone is invited in. We think that leads to a very strong, robust outcome. It's very frustrating to deal with these chicken little critics who don't face the same level of scrutiny. They can just throw the mud against the wall and see what sticks. Again, if their objective is to halt action to address the climate crisis, they're arguably succeeding. If their objective is not to do that, but to actually, get companies to deploy capital, it's failing miserably. So moving into the next year and probably beyond, we're going to be fighting that fight to communicate to the entire voluntary carbon market that those types of poorly founded criticisms need to stop. Get into the game and participate with us or other registries to assure that there's high quality out there. But at the end of the day, we don't believe there's going to be any climate justice without carbon credits. That's how capital is going to flow to a lot of the global south and elsewhere. And the fact of the matter is, we needed that capital flowing already. We can't afford to wait anymore.
Thank you, Craig. You raise critical and important topics here, which is for the carbon market, it is a continuous improvement process. And that is why initiatives like the ICVCM have been put in place and why enabling collaboration over these hurdle points is the only way that we can be improving ourselves, but furthering this fight against climate change. And the Climate Action Reserve has always been at the forefront of that. So it's truly an important thing that we're covering. On this topic of collaboration, are there any new initiatives or partnerships in place? And you've touched on a few, but are there any others that you're most excited about the reserve's involvement in?
Well, I do want to reiterate the ongoing engagement with the ICBCM. That is just fundamental to establishing more confidence in the market, and we're going to continue to be involved with the ICBCM for many years to come. We've also been working with other key players, including an ever evolving US federal policy. A number of the government agencies are finally getting more aggressive about action they want to take on the climate. Part of it's through the Global Warming Solutions Act. But we've been working with some of those agencies to collaborate to ensure that we're not stepping on each other's toes. And more importantly, that collectively we're a force multiplier and making that much larger of a difference. So that's important. I think one of the other things that's critically important is that we're privileged to be working with a community of project developers out there that are on the front lines of making a difference. And we want to encourage project developers, either whether you're working with us currently or moving forward, to bring your ideas our way. Project developers like Climeco are out there aggressively seeking how to make a huge environmental difference. And we're interested in hearing from project developers like that about what your ideas are and how to make it happen. To me, that's part of a real significant challenge that we collectively face, which is getting out into the various regions and markets and figuring out where is the biggest environmental bang for the buck? How do we truly make a difference? And while the reserve itself is often out there scoping out the landscape, it's no substitute for the project developers that, as I said, are on the front lines. They're the ones that have the capital access to deploy for whatever type of project it is to make a difference. And to the extent that there are new ideas out there, we're listening. So by all means, bring those ideas to the table.
Absolutely, and that's such an exciting facet, I believe, of my role here at the Reserve is my ability to speak to project developers or any different type of stakeholder who's interested in collaborating with the Climate Action Reserve, bringing forward new innovations or technology ideas, as these are really going to shape the future of the carbon market. And it's always this continually evolving process with our partnerships. So thank you for that. And speaking on the partnerships that we have and the work that we've been implementing this previous year in the Climate Action Reserve world, what are the top priorities for the reserve as we move into 2025? And how will our priorities and involvement shape the future of carbon markets?
One is ongoing support for the ICBCM. They have taken on a mountain of challenges to define for the world what a voluntary carbon market should be. And perhaps goes without saying, but they don't have the budget or the resources right now to accomplish what they need to as quickly as they need to accomplish it. That is not intended as a criticism. It's more recognition of the monumental challenges and objectives that they have. So we're going to continue to support that. I think as part of that, we certainly expect many more of our credits to receive the CCP label. That is sending a signal to the market that here you can find high quality. And it's going to be important, I think, for all stakeholders in the market to support the ICBCM in their work. Doesn't mean you have to do it blindly or with a 100% agreement. We've always believed in a continuous improvement process as we all gain more real world experience on how to reduce emissions. That isn't going to change, whether we're talking about the voluntary carbon market or compliance actions by a region or national government or whatever the policy might be. It's always a learning process. But there's no excuse for delay. It simply is not. So we're going to continue to support that effort over the next year and continue to highlight why all of our credits are the highest quality on the planet.
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig. And if folks listening are familiar with the core carbon principles, definitely encourage you to check them out as the reserve's work follows these, such as additionality and permanence and no double counting, just to name a few, as they're important for us to be thinking about as we're creating new carbon projects and putting out high integrity credits out into the market. So just important to keep in mind. And Craig, you recently, just to give nod, had taken a visit to the White House. So, thinking about things like that, how have policy changes at the national or international level impacted the reserve's strategy for 2025? And that was really just a shout out to you as well, as that was an impressive visit that you had.
Well, thank you. But I think that's more indicative of where the current administration is going. This was the super pollutant summit at the White House focused on N2O and methane. And the Biden administration has recognized that those are areas where you can get a lot of bang for your buck. The solutions are readily identifiable. I think they were keen to hear from us because we're not only on the forefront of actions in those areas here in the US, but as I mentioned, we're also working in China and elsewhere to address these emissions. It really is a great opportunity, and being able to collaborate with the US government with all of the actions they're taking under the Global Warming Solutions Act and other legislation is very rewarding and super critical. At the end of the day, we've got to be as focused and as efficient as possible to get as many reductions as quickly as we can, because there's just simply no alternative. I would also like to say that part of what's driving interest in the VCM is simply the lack of action elsewhere. Picking on any country or group of countries in particular, there really is too little action at national and international levels. Or maybe put differently, it's the action is just happening too slowly. I think more critically, if one thinks about it, the question is, for example, how is the global south going to achieve a green, sustainable path without a lot of capital support from elsewhere? I highly doubt it's going to come from the international community, particularly the richer countries. I would just ask folks to think about what are the chances that the US government, with all of its debt challenges, is going to commit any significant amount of capital to help the global south along that trajectory. And again, not to pick on the US, I think that applies to virtually every government. So if not compliance actions, it's going to be the voluntary market that's going to make a difference. That's why it's so frustrating to see so many companies clearly indicating their willingness to take action on climate, but getting roundly criticized for any initial actions that they take. That's not helping anybody. And it's certainly not helping the global south. They need the private investment that comes from the voluntary carbon market to achieve that sustainable path. That's why I say there's no climate justice without carbon credits.
Absolutely. And Craig, would you say that that's why the reserve has really been a champion in promoting carbon markets within Mexico? But further than that, over the past year, we've seen this growth across Latin America. It's truly our realization of the importance of bringing these financing mechanisms to countries outside of Mexico within our programs.
Absolutely. I mean, we're obviously not the only organization involved with supporting market-based solutions. The International Emissions Trading Association, that is one of the key parts of their mission, and we're happy to be part of AIDA and support their work. But there are a lot of us out there who recognize the value that voluntary action can play and eventually will play. And the sooner we get started or maybe expand what we're currently doing, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Definitely. And for anybody that needs to get a little faster in joining our game, is there a final message that you'd like to share with our audience about the importance of climate action and getting involved now, and specifically the role that Climate Action Reserve does to support this?
Absolutely. The bottom line is humans are frying our beloved planet as we speak, and it's long past the time to take more aggressive action. There's a lot of focus today on limiting warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Anybody who thinks that's still achievable at the current level of action is kidding themselves. There's even questions whether we can hold it to 2 degrees. And that's partly relying on quotes from Sir Robert Watson, former chair of the IPCC, who has expressed that very concern. That means we are heading into uncharted territory with our fragile planet and our fragile place in the Earth's ecosystem. And yet, here we are debating what works, what doesn't work. We need new guidance on scope 3. We need this, we need that. I'm not saying those efforts should stop, but they should not be an excuse for the lack of action. We need that capital deployed now. And at the end of the day, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Engage in the ongoing processes so you can make a difference. And again, I think, as I've already stated, I think one of the hallmarks of ensuring that we get it right is to make sure that it's a very transparent and inclusive process. That's the way we operate. Anybody out there who's skeptical of the work that we do or others do, come on, join our working groups. We welcome constructive criticisms and constructive participation, but leveling accusations at the moment is leading to too much chill in the existing market and the lack of action. We need to get into the game, figure out what's working and what's not, and we can retool along the way. But I think the final message I would say to any concerns out there, if you see a company that's voluntarily investing in climate action, be supportive of them. Doesn't mean you have to be 100% in agreement with the steps that they're taking, but applaud the actions they're taking. Let them know what you think they're doing right and what you think they're doing wrong, and work with them to make it better. Work with us to make it better. That's how we're going to solve this problem, not dithering away, considering that maybe there's new policies we could develop in the next 5 to 10 years or whatever. We simply don't have that time. Humanity does not have that time. Act now. We can solve this problem. The solutions are staring us in the face. What we have is a lack of political will to make it happen.
Thank you so much, Craig. You've left us with this image of knowing that climate change is occurring. We've all known this, but we need the climate action now to have long lasting solutions to be able to save our planet. So, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of the accomplishments of the reserve, but what also you're looking forward to in the years ahead for the carbon market. It's been truly a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine, Lauren. Have a good one.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it.